Cissia is finally here, and with her release is an agent who surprisingly pairs even better with Seed than she does with Orphie, the character who we all regarded as her best in slot partner previously. That said, make no mistake, Cissia is not only a great partner for Seed, she also functions as a solid DPS herself and offers decent value to other agents too. With this, today we'll be breaking down everything you need to know about Cissia, including what her best teams are, who she'll pair perfectly with, and what to expect when it comes to her build. Before we go further though, a reminder that today's video will have footage from the creator beta server. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed or learned something from today's video, and without further ado, let's get straight into it. Before I explain how Cissia works, a quick reminder that yes, Cissia can work, again, both as a sub and main DPS. That said, though understanding Cissia may seem simple at first, her gameplay can feel complicated or a bit more involved because of who she pairs well with and how it complicates her stun combos. Despite this, Cissia plays similar to a hybrid of Orphie and Yanagi mixed together. Like other sub DPS though, she also builds her energy and ultimate prior to stunning and uses both when possible in a single stun window, assuming she has enough time, but more on that later. To add to this, when played as a main DPS, she can also stay on field for longer and use any excess energy that she has before a stun window is active in order to deal more damage. In terms of how this will look gameplay wise though, this means Cissia will loop her EX special into her held basic attack to then activate a quick assist for her allies. Following this, or when getting close to stunning an enemy, Cissia will also look to use her ultimate and swap off field after she's exhausted her resources. As a side note though, and as you'd expect, main DPS Cissia will repeat this more often than sub DPS Cissia for obvious reasons. To understand how her kit actually works though, let's start by quickly breaking down her skills. As a reminder, I will be exploring and analyzing these skills further though in the guide for Cissia upon her banner's release. Cissia's special resource is Venom, which she gains through multiple parts of her kit, and Venom can be used to trigger Corrode Bone. Cissia can also use a move known as Serpentine Shadow, unlocked after accumulating enough Venom, and this can then be consumed to perform her held basic attack and drop from the sky, similar to Yanagi. To explain Corrode Bone, however, when triggered, it deals electric damage to nearby enemies and grants her a crit rate increase, stacking up to 3 times. Her second mechanic involves Ether Veil, and this provides a team-wide buff, increasing the entire squad's crit damage. Cissia's core passive, Fatal Concoction, grants her 3 Venom upon entering the battlefield, and these stacks are automatically consumed to trigger Corrode Bone. While this effect is active though, the squad's electric damage ignores a part of the enemy's defense. This defense ignore is also based on Cissia's initial energy regen, meaning you'll actually have to build energy regen for her 6th slot and look for other sources of energy regen when building Cissia in general. Corrode Bone also deals bonus electric damage scaling with Cissia's attack, and this multiplier increases depending on the number of electric agents on the team. Cissia's additional ability activates when she's paired with an electric or stun agent, and while Cissia has any amount of Venom, the entire squad gains 40 crit damage, and she gains an additional 10% crit damage on top of this for herself. Cissia's basic attack abilities are technically the most involved or complicated aspect of her kit, though as you'll see in a moment, it's pretty straightforward. As usual, Cissia has a 4-hit combo that deals electric damage, and landing this 4th hit will grant her 2 stacks of Venom, with 1 additional stack if the enemy is stunned. Holding the basic attack button will also allow Cissia to lock onto an enemy, fly into the sky, and finally slam down, dealing electric damage. But in case you were curious, you are actually able to continue targeting enemies by holding the button while inputting movement to actually control where and when she lands on the battlefield. On that note, it is worth mentioning that you do need 1 stack of Serpentine Shadow, which we mentioned earlier, and you can gain a stack of this when Cissia gains 6 stacks of Venom. Upon hitting an enemy though, all Venom will be consumed, and this will both trigger Corrode Bone and activate a quick assist as well. Cissia's special attack grants her 3 Venom stacks, with every additional 20 energy consumed, adding an extra electric damage strike and 1 more Venom stack while refunding energy. Additionally, this can also be chained into the 4th hit of her basic attack, triggering a quick assist at the same time. As a side note, at this point you might have noticed that Cissia has several different ways to activate quick assists in her kit, and you'd be right to assume that she does offer good value as a swap-in sort of quick assist type DPS. That said, she isn't forced to use these quick assists every time, though it does help when Cissia is able to swap to a character who has very good on-field impact. Cissia's assist and dodge are pretty simple, allowing her to daze or avoid damage as expected. However, when swapping onto field via her quick assist, she can shortcut to her EX special Venomous Bite and basic attack Serpent's Kiss. Cissia's chain attack deals electric damage, grants 3 stacks of Venom, and triggers a quick assist, making it an okay option to use sometimes, but as we'll see later with Cissia's best teams, chain attacks may not even be worth using interesting since there's so many ultimates, EX specials, and abilities for Cissia's teams to fit all in one. Cissia's ultimate is another high damage skill that grants 3 stacks of venom and triggers a quick assist, but this also activates Ether Veil cold-blooded, increasing the entire squad's crit damage. Pre-farm wise, you'll be looking for 3,705,000 dennies, 300 senior investigation logs, 25 basic shock chips, 75 advanced shock chips, 250 specialized chips, 4 basic attack certification seals, 32 advanced seals, 30 pioneer certification seals, 5 hamster cage passes, 9 exuvia of refinement, and 60 higher dimensional data bloodstained miasma feathers. Now let's talk about what to expect for Cissia, her partners, and teams, but first, as usual, a quick disclaimer. First, all results will be shared on my Discord, complete with images that you can scroll through, and this is because a single video just isn't enough to cover every lineup and run that I tested. That said, if there's a specific result that you're curious about that isn't shown there, feel free to DM or ping me about it. Second, as expected, agents with access to potentials will be showcased at P6 since they're generally easier and more accessible to obtain compared to Mindscapes. For a main DPS setup, Cissia performs best when paired with strong supports that amplify her damage and also have some sort of on-field presence. The standout team for this, therefore, is Cissia, Dylan, and Astra Yao, who reached 38.8k in Shield defense and 39.3k in Deadly Assault, making it her highest performing lineup overall. However, make no mistake, Cissia is a character whose performance definitely changes depending on your team, the boss, or how you're choosing to play her, meaning that other lineups can definitely be very competitive to even this one. With this, another strong alternative is Cissia, Trigger, and Astra Yao, which still delivered a solid result at 36.4k in Shield defense and 37.9k in Deadly Assault. To my surprise, however, Cissia, Jufufu, and Suna was also a competitive option, achieving around a 38,000 in Shield defense and a 31.7k in Deadly Assault. Now, this was one of the most unexpected results from my runs, but further testing with this lineup suggested that simply having the ability to quick assist and basically stay off-field permanently were two major benefits to the team, where Cissia was then able to constantly spam her health basic or use energy whenever she wanted, especially in Shield defense. Before we even move to the sub DPS category, it is worth acknowledging that main DPS Cissia felt similarly as comfortable to play as sub DPS Cissia, even despite lacking a solid partner at times to take advantage of Cissia's quick assists in a solo DPS setup. This was mainly because she no longer had to fight for priority in a stun window where, again, in a duo DPS lineup, each DPS's abilities are powerful, but fitting it all into a short period can be frustrating or difficult. When played as a sub DPS, Cissia shifted into a more supportive damage role while still offering some damage, team buffs, and quick assists. Now, once again, although the top performing team here was Cissia, Seed, and Dylan, scoring 38.9k in Shield defense and 39.1k in Deadly Assault, the performance here felt even more dependent on the matchup or setup, as Cissia and Seed together had certain bosses where Trigger outperformed or felt more comfortable to play as opposed to Dylan. On that note, Cissia, Seed, and Trigger scored 37.1k in Shield defense and 38.8k in Deadly Assault, with a pretty small gap in score compared to the Dylan lineup. For context, it is also worth mentioning that juggling Dylan, Seed, and Cissia's ultimates in a single stun window is pretty difficult and definitely something that requires lots of planning, calculating, and preparing ahead of time, but unfortunately, though I'm positive there's a better route or sequence to play every single fight out, this was definitely no easy task. If you're curious about whether Cissia performed well with the other competitive electric limited DPS of Soldier Zero Ambi, Cissia, Soldier Zero Ambi at P6, and Trigger still functioned but saw a dramatic drop in performance, reaching 31.8k in Shield defense but 25.7k in Deadly Assault. Now, for context here, this definitely also felt weirder for Soldier Zero Ambi, where fighting for on-field time with Cissia was common and stun windows were also sometimes difficult to plan around. That said, despite the uncomfortable feeling of trying to fit chain attacks, ultimates, and EX specials all in one window, Cissia was able to deal more damage if you simply gave up doing chain attacks in the stun window. For more accessible free-to-play friendly options, Cissia performed surprisingly well and did elevate the scores of less popular or more free-to-play teams. The first lineup I tested with Cissia was Cissia Haramasa at P6 and Dylan, with this performing decently alongside a 23.9k in Shield defense and a 20.3k in Deadly Assault. Now, that said, and as you've likely concluded, this definitely isn't one of Haramasa or Dylan's best teams by any means, even if it was a more quote-unquote free-to-play option for Cissia. However, for the free-to-play options, I did want to highlight just how silly silly and powerful using something like Cissia, Anton, and Astra Yawas, leading the category with a 26.5k in Shield defense and a 24,000 in deadly assault. Now, if you aren't familiar with Anton and Astra's synergy though, the two are able to avoid consuming energy on Anton by consistently swapping and performing quick assist attacks on Anton, which minimizes the amount of energy consumed to attack while he still benefits from his enhanced drill attack. With this, the reason for Cissia performing decently alongside Anton and Astra is because she too offers another quick assist for Anton, just like he gains with Astra, but he also receives additional electric DPS based buffs at the same time, making the three a very powerful trio. Now let's look at Cissia's build options, starting with her W engine. Cissia's signature, Serpentine Seeker, features energy regen as its main stat, already making it one of the best options for her flat out. It also grants a 20% crit rate increase, and whenever Cissia consumes at least 20 energy, it activates a buff that allows the entire squad's electric damage to ignore 28% of the enemy's defense. Plain and simple, this is her signature and easily her best option. Other options like Cordis Germina, Severed Innocence, and Zanchin Herbcase are also usable alternatives to this, but without an energy regen main stat, you won't really be able to maximize her core passive, and as a result, should you have access to Bellicose Blaze, Orphie signature, this is actually a decent alternative too, with free crit rate also attached to this engine as well. When considering energy regen options as a whole, however, Drill Rig Red Axis is another very powerful engine worth using. Its 50% energy regen main stat helps with Cissia's scaling, while its passive grants a 50% electric damage bonus to basic attacks after using an EX special or chain attack, which again synergizes perfectly with how Cissia plays. If none of these options are available, however, the ever reliable and craftable Starlight engine is still viable, with it providing attack, or you could use the event engines like Marcato Desire and Gilded Blossom for their okay passives and otherwise still usable main stats. For Cissia's 4-piece set, Dawn's Bloom is one of her best options. This increases her basic attack damage, and using an EX special or ultimate will increase an additional boost to her basic attack damage too. In a mono electric team, Thunder Metal is another great option here, increasing Cissia's attack by 28% so long as the enemy is shocked. Other viable alternatives to this include Hormone Punk and Woodpecker Electro, which to be fair do also have their own share of flaws and strengths, but this ultimately still depends on your build and available stats. If you're planning to use Cissia as a sub DPS though, Astral Voice is a solid 4-piece option, especially since she frequently triggers quick assists. For 2-piece sets, Swing Jazz or Moonlight Lullaby is also good if you want to maximize her core passive buffs, but otherwise using flexible options like Thunder Metal, Branch and Blade Song, Woodpecker Electro, Puffer Electro, Astral Voice, or even Hormone Punk can all be considered or used depending again on your needs and your roles. For main stats, you'll go with crit rate or crit damage on slot 4, electric damage bonus or attack percent on slot 5, and energy regen on slot 6 to scale her core passive more effectively. If you're playing her strictly as a main DPS, however, attack percent on slot 6 is also technically viable, but I'd definitely test a few runs to see if the lack of energy feels too uncomfortable. As for stat lines to aim for, you'll be looking for around 2700 attack, 50 crit rate, and 130 crit damage, alongside approximately 3.68 energy regen if you're looking to maximize her core passive. Last but not least, let's move to Cissia's pros and cons. For pros, she can be played both as a main DPS and sub DPS, and she's easily one of the best partners right now for Seed. On top of this, she can still be used with older electric DPS options too, like with Anton, and she doesn't take too much time on field if she's played as a sub DPS. On that note, she also has great free-to-play W engine options, but of course every character has their cons too, and Cissia specifically may require a decent amount of planning to find the perfect stun combo or route, and she isn't nearly as insane of a damage increase as other agents have been for a partner to a team. Finally, though this isn't really a con as much as just an unfortunate circumstance, she is releasing before 3.0, which can be tough to justify pulling a character during, since there's a good chance the 3.0 characters will be very strong. Now, though it has been some time since Orphie has released, I did want to quickly go over comparisons of Cissia versus Orphie, though these tests do require context. First, nearly everything available for testing at the moment heavily favors double electric or attack agents together, and with this, Cissia has showcased a massive increase in score when used, especially compared to Orphie. That said, this does feel unfair to assess by itself, since Orphie also lacked a proper buff to use, with the Deadly Assault buff selection being much worse for any attack agents that weren't electric and pairable together with someone like Seed. Additionally, there aren't many bosses who are both fire and electric weak at the same time, meaning a portion of Orphie plus Seed's team's potential is simply locked away and we haven't seen it yet. With this though, the gap in performance was still significant, and and well over 8 to 10,000 depending on deadly assault or Shiyu defense, but this felt much less fair, especially considering the skews towards Cissia. Now there are two final questions to answer here, and that's whether Cissia is worth pulling for and if you should start pre-farming for her. In my opinion, this character is extremely silly in terms of agent design and her gameplay is very visually pleasing. However, to suggest that a character is a must pull, especially ahead of a 3.0 release, is really difficult to do. This also isn't even accounting for the fact that she's more tuned for Anton, Seed, and the electric agents specifically, as opposed to being more general or versatile, but with these limitations, Cissia is certainly not a must pull for those that lack Seed or don't have access to characters like Trigger, Dylan, or any of the electric attack agents, and of course, otherwise, you're free to pull as you'd like. As a final note, I would like to mention that similar to Seed, Cissia does help other teams reach higher scores, which is nice especially if you're a day one Anton believer or you love Seed, but as a reminder, this is also on top of also being quite easy to gear and build, with Anton's engine being a very strong option for her. That's it for today's video though, and personally I'm a huge fan of the way that they've designed and presented Cissia, especially as someone who's also liked Seed's story quite a bit. With this, I personally will be pulling for her, but as usual, feel free to pick what's right for you. Thanks again for watching though guys, I'll see you all next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, good night.